What's going on, guys? Today we're going to be going over kind of how I straighten out the body and get it ready for primer, and just kind of filling in some dents, some scratches, stuff like that, and just all the little things that you should look for whenever you are body working a car. So basically, we have made a lot of progress on this truck, and as I was going through it, I thought that this would be a very useful video for some of you. So everything that I know has been from just trial and error and watching a bunch of YouTube videos. So I watched somebody do it a certain way, go out and try it myself. I might screw it up. If I do, that's fine. I just do it again. Some things I try for myself, and I find ways that I make them work in my own ways. So I wanted to kind of go over some things that I see in videos, and so, some of the things that some people are saying that is just completely false, and kind of just straighten out the way to like really simplify body work. All right, so first of all, this is a perfect example of what we're kind of going for, okay? And this would be a perfect situation, right? Like you could probably go and put some primer over this and it wouldn't look too bad. Like it would honestly probably look pretty good. But on almost every single car, okay, that looks decent, there is going to be body filler on it. Whether it's like a spray-on type of like polyester filler or your traditional body fillers that you mix on a board or whatever, there's going to be some kind of filler to fill in the little imperfections. It's unrealistic to expect that a car is just going to be absolutely perfect and not going to need any kind of filler. It's going to need some kind of filler. Now, there's definitely a point where there's too much filler. I've seen literally people lay the door flat, and it actually looks like this was one of those doors because this has been repainted a few times. From just me sanding down through it, I could tell. But there was so much body filler all over the whole thing, and now that I've sanded it down, I can tell that it's not really necessary. So I will show you what is necessary, in my own opinion. Again, there's more than one way to do it. This is just my way. But I'm going to sand it down, show you what I think is necessary, and show you some of the issues that we're working with on this door, on this 63 F100. All right, so right off the bat, as I was sanding down, I was seeing all these little dents, which I'm actually going to take this dent right here down real quick, just to bare metal again, just to start over and show you guys kind of what we're going to do. But you got a couple dents here. So real quick, I'm going to take those down to bare metal because that same kind of dent was all the way down through here for some reason. All right, so I'm just using a wire wheel or a wire brush on the grinder right here. This is a right angle grinder, and we're just going to get all this stuff out of there real quick. So this looks like, given the holes that are here, it looks like they use some kind of different mirror than what was factory, because over here, this is actually where the factory mirror would have went. They kind of booger welded this up and then tried to fill it in. And the filler was so thick actually that these body lines right over here, which now that I'm looking at my camera, you probably can't see that too well, but it was perfectly flat across here, and now it, like with the body filler all removed from this panel, it's way too low. So this appears to be like maybe mounting holes from like an aftermarket mirror or something like that. So, and same thing over here, you got some grinding marks and everything, probably from where they repaired this area. So we're gonna go through and just fill these little areas in. I'm gonna go talk about the products that we're gonna use real quick. All right, so this is kind of chaos, this little area here, because this is all my body filler products, and I've got body filler going on a lot of cars right now. So this is EverCoat Lightweight. This is what I like to use. I've recommended this in several videos, and every product that I'm going to talk about in the video I will leave in the description below. But this EverCoat Lightweight, I like it, sands out really good. And then of course you got your tube of hardener that goes with it, and this product has been really good. Sometimes you can actually just get away with using this, spray a little primer over it, and it looks great. Sometimes if there's like little pinholes, because that does happen whenever you're mixing body filler, you have to go through, and I like to use this Finishing Glaze. So if you do have any little pinholes or like some scratches or low areas like I'm going to show you on the door, the Finishing Glaze is really nice to go in and fill out some of those areas. It's more of like a self-leveling thing. And again, you get your hardener with that. This is a 3M product. I'm sure both these companies would not approve that I mix them, but I've done it on every project and it works great. Also, this mixing board is huge for just speeding up your projects and just making sure that your area stays nice and clean. You can easily just walk over here. I use some acetone to kind of spray down the spreaders and stuff and just wipe them down with some towels. But this is a game changer. So instead of having to like work on a surface like this or sand it down, because that's what I was doing, I would sand down the surface and then reuse it. That takes up a lot of time. This, you just peel this sheet off. Obviously you can see I've used that a couple times. You just wad it up and then throw it in the trash. Another question I had was, how much prep work do you have to do to the bare metal to go over it with some filler? So it's not as picky as like, you know, painting a car. Like if I go through here and spray this down with wax and grease remover, that's great, but it's not really going to change anything. All you really need to do to this to get it ready is just to kind of hit it with a blow-off tool, and then you're pretty much ready to start putting filler onto it. I've never had a problem with adhesion. If I have like a clean metal surface like this, I just kind of blow all the dust off from me grinding or whatever, and then it's ready to put the filler onto. All right, so we're gonna hit it with some compressed air. Okay, it's perfectly fine. And now we're ready to go mix our body filler and apply it to the panel. All right, so another thing that's gonna save you some time on cleanup and just making sure that your hands don't get all nasty is using some gloves. So we're gonna pop the top of our EverCoat lightweight here. I just stirred this yesterday, so there's really no need to stir it. If you have a new container, make sure that you stir it. But I typically just go in here and just kind of scoop out enough, and you don't need anything crazy because this is actually probably way too much. So we're gonna go over it with a little bead of this hardener. You don't have to be crazy with the hardener, I always just run a little bead across there. And we're gonna get our little spreader here and just mix this together. When you see the streakiness of the hardener still in there, you want to make sure that you're getting all that out. So once it's one uniform color, you're probably ready to go ahead and apply it. So if you've never used a body filler before, there's pretty much, I mean, this is go time now. Like you don't want to like rush it and just slap it on, but there's definitely a hurry to it. You need to mix it and then get over there and get near the car so that it's ready to be put on, because it'll start clumping up and not spreading as easily on the car whenever you get over there. So I'm gonna move the camera and we'll go apply this. All right, so another thing is this dent, as small as it is, it's actually fairly deep. So with how much you're gonna be putting on here, very rarely can you actually fill this up with just one trip. So this is gonna take a couple trips. So if it doesn't look perfect when you're spreading it, that's fine. You just want nice kind of uniform coverage. Level it all off. That'll save you a lot of time. If there's like a bunch of lines in there, you want to level those off. And then we're going to go through and fill these in as well. Now those aren't as deep, so that may actually be one trip, but most dents actually are going to take a couple trips. So, and I mean fully letting it harden, sand it down a little bit, and then fill it up some more, because this stuff will sag and then you'll have to go in and fill it again, which that's my whole point. Don't just glob a bunch of this on there, because you're gonna have problems with it being uneven and stuff like that. So to save yourself product, go through there, do a thin little layer, sand it a little bit, fill it up some more, fill it up some more. When it's all nice and flat, and we'll go over kind of how to make sure that it's all nice and flat here in a minute, but once it's all nice and flat, then you go through and be ready to prime it. I'm going to use the rest of this down on the bottom part of the panel. All right, so I'm going to touch on cleanup just real quick. You'll have a glob of body filler on there. You need to get that off now, or you're going to be going through a ton of spreaders. I've been using the same 3 spreaders for the last several projects. So if you clean them and take care of them, it keeps stuff from building up on there. You don't have to keep buying them and throwing them away. So you just hit it first with a dry paper towel, and then I just kind of spray it, pump sprayer with some acetone, and then wipe the rest of the residue off of there. You're good to go. So now this paper here, since it's all pretty smooth, I could probably go through there and use another glob of body filler with some hardener. So for one more use, that's probably perfectly fine, and then we'll be able to just peel that layer back. So this, again, saves you a ton of time on cleanup. All right, so I wanted to talk about what you're seeing here on the panel. This is the glazing putty, or the finishing glaze, whatever you want to call it. That is the lighter stuff that you're seeing here. So after I've applied that, it's all nice and leveled out and everything. Where we just applied this and how it looks darker, that's because it's a different product. So, but once this dries, which is going to take, you know, usually in like 20 minutes, and I kind of, to speed up the time, we'll lay this on and I'll go to a separate area. So if I wasn't filming right now, I would go in and fill in these little tiny spots right here. But with filming, obviously, I'm taking the time to tell you guys about this. So, but I would jump from like this area and then go repair an area on the other side of the car. Then when that's trying to dry, I come back here and sand this and just go back and forth and then just make sure that I hit the whole car. Some dents will actually require probably using like a stud welder to help pull those dents out. Obviously some you can be lucky enough to kind of like pop them out if it's a bigger dent on the hood or something. But some you will actually have to get like a stud welder, pull the dents out with a slide hammer or whatever, which that's going to be on a totally separate video. But with the way this dent was, with a hole right in the middle of it, with a stud welder, obviously you have to have clean metal to weld to. So if I was going to weld and there's a hole there, obviously that's not going to work. So it's better just to fill this up, just do a couple passes, and that other, like, it was pretty much like scratches from a grinder. Fill those in with some body filler, it'll be perfectly fine. So while that's drying, I kind of wanted to talk about why I'm making these videos. So basically, I've been doing a lot of like restoration type stuff, and there's been a little bit of a delay between the next update video, and I've been doing a lot of work to the truck, obviously. So I wanted to kind of just share some of the ways that I do things, because they're a little different than the traditional way, but really it takes a lot of the extra work out of it. So I'm sharing these with you because I feel like I've done them enough to where I've learned some things, and hopefully I can share something with you guys. So if you like these kind of videos and you guys want to see more of this and more kind of informational type things, definitely leave me a comment, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel, obviously. That way I know whether I should keep going on with these videos or keep staying with the restorations. I'm open-minded to both of them. So we're gonna get back to the panel now. All right guys, so now this is the point where I go ahead and start doing the block sanding. Some people will try to fill these as best as they can, then prime it, then do the block sanding. I block sand the whole way, because usually if you go through and you straighten this stuff out now, that's less block sanding that you're gonna have to do whenever you go to actually block sand the whole car if you use a filler primer, because you're just not gonna have as many errors. So there's no reason why you shouldn't block sand all this stuff out. So obviously there's different shapes. I have a couple of these small ones. This one's more flexible. We're not gonna use that one on this one probably. This gigantic one, it's super rigid. It's pretty straight. There's no reason to use that one on this part here, because I mean, obviously it's just overkill. And then you've got this little thinner one, same kind of deal. It does have a little bit of a flex to it, but it takes a lot more effort for that. So it's not as pliable as like this smaller, spongier one here. So obviously this one has been used, the sandpaper on here has been used, but all you do is just wrap these with the adhesive back sandpaper, and then you just start going to town. The big thing here is a lot of, like, you don't want to be up here like this. You want to put both hands on it, and you want to make sure it's sitting flush against the panel. Because after I've used it, you know, there's a little bit of a curve to it, so you want to make sure that you're actually pressing it down against the panel. So basically I just do this in big diagonal pattern here. Just go this way, kind of go across the whole repair area, and then go the opposite way until it all feathers in. So we're going to do that a little bit, and then we'll go from there. All right, so we've taken a few passes each way at this, and these are the things that you're wanting to look for. So this right here, where it's kind of got like pulling powder in there, like that's where all of it's collecting, that's because there's a low spot in there. So if you were to wipe that off or hit it with some compressed air, you would immediately see it's rough in there. That's because it's not getting hit. The other stuff out here is all being sanded, so this is all at a workable level. Things I try to focus on are these low spots out here, because obviously, like I said, you're going to be going through there and filling that again. So we're just going to keep sanding this and see what happens. All right, so for the edges of the repair, this is kind of what you want, kind of this clouded edge. That's a good blend. As you run your finger over that, you can barely feel that. That's what we're going for around the edges. So in here, again, all this stuff up here, you can feel a rough edge there, so that's still high. So you just want to keep working at that. Hit it with a little compressed air so we can get a better view. As you can see, we have even blending all on the outside here. And then on the inside here, we have this rougher texture. So that's indicating a low spot. So given the fact that all the edges here are nice and blended in, that means that all we have to do, we can stop there and just focus on our next fill on this inside part right here. Same thing over here. This is all blended in. It's all starting to get that kind of hazy look on the outside, so it's all blending in nicely. And then you have this really rough area here, and then even a hole right here. So we're just going to go through and focus our efforts right here and right here whenever we use the next layer of filler. So at this stage, given the fact that I can run my hand over it and fill pretty good indentation there, we are not ready for the glazing putty. We need to go ahead and put a little bit more filler on there, and then same way with this one. The big thing is I like to use gloves because I feel like it just makes your fingers more sensitive to where those low spots are. So as you're running your hand over it, you can really feel where those spots are. I pretty much find everything by hand, but I'll show you another way. If you don't have as good of an eye for checking for this kind of stuff, I will show you another way that you can go and find those areas. And that's just by using a light. So you're gonna hold it down the panel and shine it down the panel. And then you can see right there, it immediately highlights that area. So it's not so visible right there. And then as you look at it right there, instantly I can see a low spot right there and a low spot right there. So that kind of just highlights the areas for you. That's another really good trick whenever you get to the primer phase and you're trying to make sure that all your scratches are out of there. This is another really good trick to use. So we're gonna mix up some more body filler, hit those two spots, and we'll be right back. Fill that hole first, and then just kind of smooth out the edges around it. And with these spreaders, you don't want to use a crazy amount of pressure. I see people like, you know, the spreader's like all the way bent backwards almost to where it's like touching end to end. You don't have to do that. You just kind of just glide it over top of there using, I would say, light pressure. So to kind of fill in the hole first, and then after that, it's just a very light pressure to kind of smooth it out. And then as you are spreading it, you're gonna see these little streaks that I'm trying to fight out right now. These little, that looks pretty good. So you're gonna see these little areas that are gonna eventually probably be some little air pockets in there, little pinholes. That's what the glazing putty is for. Or if it's a small enough pinhole, you can actually go in there and just hit it with some filler primer and everything will be fine. All right, so we're gonna go and do a second time here, same thing. There's the smallest little area right here of some grittiness. that's what you want to use your glazing putty on, or your finishing glaze, whatever the product is called. 3M is not the only good one. That's just the one that I found that I like. And then this area right here seems like this is, I mean, you could probably fill it up with that finishing glaze, but see this area right here, this little dark spot, that's indicating a low spot between where the filler is and the metal over here. So what I do when I see something like that, because you're probably going to see a little bit of something in there. I mean, I can feel it barely. So, you know, of course, when it's all glossy and nice, it'll be a lot easier to see that. And again, you could take your light over it and you can see that there's a little bit of an edge right there. So we're going to hit that down with a smaller block. It's filling very smooth. We just got to fill this little area in. You can see a little bit of grittiness as I take the light over it right there. Hope you guys can see that on camera. And then same thing with all that stuff. So I'm going to actually give you guys a different camera angle so you guys can see a little bit better what I'm talking about. All right, so I've got both of the repair areas on camera here, and at first glance, I mean, in the camera I can see this one right here. This one looks like it's good to go though, until you shine a light on it, and then you can start to see all this grittiness over here. And depending on what you're watching this on, you may not even see that, but you can see right there. I can feel it with my fingertips. So we just need to go through, fill that, and then this next coat, these probably will be done. All right guys, I put another layer of body filler on here, and I'm gonna use the light again. All right, so as you can see, you have nice, even scratches across the body filler into the metal. That's another good sign that you've got a nice fill there. So when I run my hand across here, I don't feel any difference between the metal and the body filler. It feels pretty much the exact same. The only difference is that the body filler is sanded with a little more coarse grit than the metal was. So, and then same thing over here. I'll show you with a light. Maybe that little spot down there at the bottom, that looks like that's where one of those holes were. So what we're going to do for this panel, we're getting ready to go and fill in some glazing putty, and for some more protection for that hole, because obviously if that was hit, there's potential that that could go through. So we're just going to fill in some of these little areas like this, and I'll show you better with the light here. So that's what we're dealing with. But I'm using the big block, and then you have metal on both sides here and like right here. So you can tell that this is a low spot. The metal here, that's both good. That's where the panel should be. So we're going to leave the metal as is and then bring everything up around it to where we have nice, even, smooth surfaces all the way around it. So as you can see, take your light across here. We got to fill in that part right there. So, and I think there was a little tiny spot at the bottom. All right, so we're gonna use the same kind of mixing paper for this. And basically, this bottle is pretty much a pump, or it's got like a little squeeze tube vibe to it. So basically, you pop the top off, and it's like an accordion. Like you just squeeze it, and then it'll start coming out. So basically, it does not take much of this. Just a little bit. That's going to be plenty for those areas. And then the hardener, it takes way less than what we were using for the body filler. Way less. Literally, like for a size like this, a little pea-sized dot. That's what this should look like, okay? Just a big glob of the glazing putty and then a little tiny dot of that hardener. That's all you need. And then I like to use bigger spreaders for this because I just feel like it creates a smoother finish. So we are going to make sure this hardener gets mixed in. And again, everything should be the same uniform color. All right, you're gonna notice how thin this stuff spreads here. And basically we're just gonna tie this area into the other area where we have our glazing putty. And you gotta be very gentle with this. You just want to just barely glide this spreader across here. And then you're gonna save yourself so much time in sanding when you get nice even coverage with this stuff. So we're gonna go over those little low spots that we were talking about. So once you go through here and you can identify like where your low spots are, your high spots are, and you get more experience of like watching and making sure everything's all feathered in really nice, you can actually go through here and use pneumatic tools like DA sanders or air sand, like the files and the pneumatic straight sanders, whatever you want to call them. I don't know their technical term, but you can use all that stuff. Typically, I only use a DA. I don't use the pneumatic straight sander thing. I'd rather block sand it by hand. But with a DA, I can go through here and I know what will work and what won't. Personally, I would much rather use my Lite than using a guide coat, but a guide coat basically is where you take like a black powder or even like a black, usually they do like a flat black primer. You spray it all over this whole area and then you go through and block sand it, and then obviously the areas that are still left that are really dark black, you can try to sand those out, but they identify where your high spots and your low spots are. So obviously the spots that don't get touched on that panel, by doing block sanding as a check after you do DA work and all that, they will identify kind of where your problems are with the guide coat. So with this finishing glaze, typically I would go through and block sand it. But since I've been getting a little bit more skilled, I'm going to go through with some 220 grit and use a DA. And even on this round part, that's the thing, you got to keep the sander moving or you're going to create a flat spot. So if you just go through at a lower setting and use a finer sandpaper, and you can just start feathering all this stuff in, and then you'll have a nice smooth panel. So once this dries, which what you're looking for is for the tackiness to go away. It's still a little tacky, so especially in these bigger areas. So we're gonna wait just a little bit longer. It's getting close though. So we're gonna wait just a little bit longer, and whenever it's ready, we're gonna hit it with some 220 on a DA, and this thing is gonna be perfect. All right, so we have these two dents right here and right here that we were focusing on in this video. Of course, I'm working on some other stuff over here, but we're focused on this for demonstration purposes. So as I lay my hand across there, it's nice and smooth. I don't feel any kind of ripples or anything. And even my palm, I like to use my palm. I don't feel any difference, maybe except for like the sanding scratches where I touched up this little part right here. So, and then right here, perfectly smooth. Like, can't feel anything at all. Even with this metal here, typically you can feel a little bit. It's perfectly smooth. You could put high build primer on this, and once you blocked everything out, this would be a perfect panel. All right, I just wanted to share those things with you because when I was trying to learn and find out, videos like this were really helpful for me. And it literally all started by me asking someone in person if I could just kind of like follow them and watch them and everything. And literally they said, why don't you just try to figure it out yourself? And at the time, I thought, well, that was kind of rude. But really the guy had a very good point. There's plenty of resources that I could go and, you know, look these things up. I started watching stuff on YouTube, went out and bought a welder, had absolutely no idea how to weld, and then just started practicing very frequently, every single week. So same thing with painting. I'm kind of just diving in head first, practicing where I can, and just learning everything by watching videos. So that's one skill that I would really like to learn. So I've really spent my time researching and just looking up that stuff. So you can learn all these things. I hope those little things helped you. And again, every product that I talked about, from the mixing board to all the actual products like the fillers and stuff, they're all going to be down in the description below, as well as the block sanders. So all that stuff's gonna be down in the description, so make sure you check those out. Other than that, real quick channel update. We're upgrading things around the shop here. Got a new compressor. It's a way bigger unit than what I had. I wish I had this on camera, but the little regulator on the other one blew the cap off and it hit the ceiling of my barn. Have no idea where it went, so I just had to go out and get a new one, which that one was luckily already ordered before that happened. So it's actually sitting, ready to be wired up. We got everything wired up, and everything's good. But that compressor is really how I've been knocking out a bunch of work on this thing, and I really expect this project to just go fast, super fast. So if you liked the video or found it useful in any kind of way, make sure you give it a like. If you're gonna try this stuff at home and you want some more clarification, or you gotta ask a question or whatever, just reach out to me in the comments, or I will put the link to my Facebook page down below. That way you can ask me and we can message one-on-one. And if you guys have suggestions on other videos that you would like to see that might help you or somebody else, make sure you leave those in the comments as well. And subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. I will catch you guys in the next video.